Pt1 we are going to continue our study of factoring, but today we are actually going to apply factoring to solving equations. So we will apply factoring to solve higher order equations. Let's start with an example. Let's solve x squared subtract 5x plus 6 is equal to 0. Well, notice what I can do with x squared minus 5x plus 6. I can factor x squared minus 5x plus 6 into x minus 2 times x minus 3. Now, to do the factoring, I simply used guess and check factoring. This tells me my signs will be the same. The only way to get x squared is x and x. I have two ways of getting 6. 3 times 2, 6 times 1. The 3 times 2 will check. So by guess and check factoring, I get x squared subtract 5x plus 6 equals 0 is the same as x minus 2 times x minus 3 is equal to 0. Now let's think a minute. If I'm going to multiply two things together to get 0, one of them must be 0. In other words, the only way I can get 0 by multiplying is to multiply by zeros. I am multiplying these two factors to get 0, therefore one of them must be 0. So we know that either x minus 2 is 0 or x minus 3 is 0. So one of those two factors must be 0. If x minus 2 is equal to 0, then I can add 2 to both sides to get x is equal to 2. So notice I've added 2 to both sides. I added 2 to the left side, I added 2 to the right side. Then x minus 2 plus 2 is just x, 0 plus 2 is 2. I do the same thing for x minus 3 is equal to 0. I add 3 to both sides to get x is equal to 3. So we have two answers. Now notice we have a quadratic equation. That means we have exponent of 2. So if the largest exponent is 2, it appears that we have two answers. You might wonder, will both of them check? Well, let's see. Let's check first of all, x is equal to 2. Well, I'm going to substitute into the original equation, which was x squared minus 5x plus 6 is equal to 0. I replace x by 2 to have 2 squared minus 5 times 2 plus 6. 2 squared is 4. 5 times 2 is 10. 4 minus 10 is negative 6. Negative 6 plus 6 is 0. Let's check 3. I substitute the 3 into x squared minus 5x plus 6 is equal to 0. Everywhere I have an x, I replace it by 3. So we have 3 squared minus 5 times 3 plus 6 equals 0. 3 squared is 9. 5 times 3 is 15. 9 plus a negative 15 is negative 6. Negative 6 plus 6 is 0. So we see that both answers check. Therefore we know that x squared minus 5x plus 6 equals 0 has two solutions. X equal 2 is the solution. X equal 3 is the solution. To solve means to find everything that makes it true. Find a set of all numbers that make the equation true. Both of these numbers make it true, so therefore the solution would be x is equal to 2 and x is equal to 3. In just a moment, I'm going to give you a rule that you can use to solve higher order equations by factoring. You need to make sure that you understand the rule then you need to memorize it. You really need to write the rule on your study sheet so that you can review it several times a week. Now, you should never simply memorize something without first understanding it. But in order to effectively do mathematics, you've got to follow an established procedure. Here is your rule. You need to try to write it down as I'm saying it, and then you need to look at the screen to make sure that you have written it correctly. To solve higher order equations by factoring. Step number 1, you put it in standard form. Now, standard form means the left member is in descending order and the right member is 0. 2, you completely factor the left member. 3, you set each factor equal to 0. 4, you solve each resulting equation. 5, you check. Now, the check is optional. By optional, I mean that if you have not made a mistake in the first 4 steps, the numbers you get will be the correct answer. Checking is just confirming that your answer is correct. Now, later on, you will have equations in which you must check. I'm going to read it one more time. To solve higher order equations by factoring. First, put the equation in standard form, which means the left member will be in descending order and the right member will be 0. The second step, completely factor the left member. The third step, set each factor equal to 0. The fourth step, solve each resulting equation. And the fifth step, which is optional, is to check it. Now, I'm going to follow exactly the same procedure in doing this as I did with the example a few moments ago.